not stopped doing it. It is still happening, and so we'll get into that in a moment. So, but what I want to do first is I want to talk a little bit about how government is structured, because one of the questions that I'm getting is like, well, is this going to lead to a criminal charge? Is somebody going to go to jail? Is this a trial? And I want to clarify a couple of things. Let me add this so y'all can see that. All right. I used to be the chief of policy and public information for the Maryland Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. And one of the things that I had to do was to go out and explain to people throughout the community how government worked. And so this is a few slides from some of the stuff that I used to, a few slides adapted from some of the stuff that I used to do. All right, so we know that, and we can't say that we know this because I've met several people who don't. So the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch, those are the three branches of government. And each one is separate but equal. And you hear that separate but equal thing a lot. But what that means is that each of them has a very specific place that they can do stuff in, and they can't get into the other group's activities. So, like, the president doing executive orders, that's why there is a law that says how much the executive order a president, or what the president can cover in an executive order, because he can't go around making laws. So because that's specifically designed for the legislative branch. So the executive branch enforces laws. So that's the police, that's the president, the governor, the health department, those types of government agencies. Most of the ones that we engage with are executive branch agencies. The executive branch kind of like does the stuff. It's like the body parts of the government. And so the legislative branch, they make the laws. The legislative branch is kind of like the unconscious of the body. They look at all of the information. So the rest of the executive branch doesn't have to do all of that all the time. The legislative branch, they're the background mind, they're the subconscious, but they look through all of the stuff and they say, well, these are our values. This is what we're going to do, and decide for the body what will happen. And so that's what the legislative branch does. The judicial branch is kind of like the cognitive portion, or the decision making parts of the brain. The judicial branch is the one who decides what happens. The judicial branch is basically like the active thought if the government was a body. Not a great on directly on board analogy, but it gets us close. So each one of these branches has a very unique and distinct function. And it's important to remember that when we start, because I'm going to circle back around to what's going to happen. The other part of this that I want to bring some attention to is that levels of government. Okay, so in the rows, those are the branches of government: executive, legislative, and judicial. At the top are the levels of government: federal, state, and local. And examples are the federal government, the national government, a state government, Maryland, and a local government, Anne Arundel County, which is a county in Maryland. And so, as you can see, each one of them has their own kind of version of the executive, legislative, and judicial branch, except local jurisdictions. Now, that's true in Maryland. It's true-ish. It's really technical, but for by and large, there is no like Anne Arundel County Court. There is, it all still falls under, in Maryland at least, under the state administration of the courts. And so just wanted you to get a layout. So there are things that in the national space that the president can do, and actually does not have authority to do it in the state. So that's why when you hear some things happening that the governors have to declare states of emergency before the federal government can come in, because the federal government has limitations on what it can do within a state's border. And the same thing happens at the local jurisdiction, where, however, particularly in states like Maryland, the state has a lot more authority to interfere in local jurisdictions than the federal government has to interfere in state jurisdictions. Normally, a lot of the engagement that states and federal, the authority that the federal government ends up having over the state, a lot of that has to do with the money that the federal government gives the state. All right, this ain't going to be a full-on civics lecture, but like I wanted to, because some of this stuff is important as we talk about how the committees are structured and what they can and can't do, especially on the issue of criminality. All right, and so this is just a chart on how an idea goes to a law, and it uses senators as examples. They get an idea, it gets drafted, then it gets submitted, then it gets introduced, then it gets assigned to the committee, then it gets a hearing in a subcommittee, then the subcommittee votes on report to the committee, then the committee votes and report it to the full Senate, and the Senate votes to pass the bill. Then the House gets the bill from the Senate, and the Senate bill gets assigned to a committee. The bill gets a hearing in a subcommittee. The subcommittee votes to report to the committee. The committee reports the vote to the House. The House can vote to pass the bill with amendments. The bill goes to conference committee. The conference committee creates a compromise bill. The compromise bill passes both chambers, and then it gets signed by the governor. It takes all of. Hi, my name is William Honolulu Jr., and I'm the host of the BlackUSA.news morning show and the president of the Grinding Gang Incorporated. The Grinding Gang is an organization that helps small business owners in the nonprofit and for-profit communities figure out how to make sense of all the noise. There's a lot of information out there, and sometimes it gets a little overwhelming. We help you develop business plans. We help you figure out what to do with a lot of the information you receive. And we also help you figure out how to become more profitable. We also host a variety of workshops. You can check out our next workshop on grant writing right here.